The fluorescent lights of Vanderbilt University Medical Center cast harsh shadows across Sarah Mitchell's pale face as she stared at the oncology report in her trembling hands. The words, "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer," seemed to blur together, but the prognosis remained crystal clear. 6 to 8 months, if she was lucky. "I'm sorry, Sarah," Dr. Rebecca Williams said softly, her voice carrying the weight of delivering countless similar verdicts over her 20-year career. "We'll do everything we can to make you comfortable and give you the best quality of life possible during this time." Sarah nodded slowly, her nurse's training kicking in even as her world crumbled around her. At 34, she had dedicated her life to caring for others, working double shifts in the pediatric ward, never taking time for herself, never pursuing the dreams she had quietly harbored since childhood. The irony wasn't lost on her that she now found herself on the other side of the medical equation. "How long do I have before—" She paused, unable to finish the sentence. "Before symptoms become more severe," Dr. Williams completed gently. "Perhaps 3 to 4 months where you'll feel relatively strong. I'd recommend using that time for anything important to you." Walking through the hospital corridors she knew so well, Sarah's mind wandered to the small apartment she called home in East Nashville. The walls were adorned with concert posters, ticket stubs, and memorabilia from countless country music shows she'd attended over the years. But one artist stood above all others in her collection: Garth Brooks. Since she was 12 years old, Garth's music had been her constant companion through every significant moment of her life. His songs had comforted her through her parents' divorce, celebrated her nursing school graduation, and provided strength during her most challenging days at the hospital. She had attended 17 of his concerts, but had never had the courage or financial means to purchase meet-and-greet tickets. That evening, sitting in her living room with her cat Winston purring softly in her lap, Sarah made a decision that would set everything in motion. She opened her laptop and navigated to Garth Brooks' official website. His upcoming stadium tour would make a stop in Nashville in just 3 weeks. And for the first time in her adult life, Sarah decided to spend money on herself rather than save every penny for a future she would never see. The meet-and-greet package cost $800, nearly a month's rent. But Sarah's savings account held enough for this one final dream. Her fingers hovered over the purchase button as tears streamed down her face. This wasn't how she had imagined spending her life savings, but circumstances had a way of reshaping priorities with brutal efficiency. Meanwhile, across town in the suburban neighborhood of Belle Meade, 16-year-old Michael Thompson sat in his bedroom, his bald head reflecting the soft glow of his desk lamp as he practiced chord progressions on his acoustic guitar. The chemotherapy had taken his thick brown hair months ago, but it hadn't diminished his passion for music. Michael's mother, Jennifer Thompson, watched from the doorway as her son lost himself in the melody. The doctors at Children's Hospital had been cautiously optimistic about his acute lymphoblastic leukemia treatment, but the road ahead remained uncertain. Music had become Michael's escape, his way of processing the fear and uncertainty that came with a cancer diagnosis at such a young age. "Dinner's ready, sweetheart," Jennifer called softly, not wanting to interrupt the peaceful moment. "Just 5 more minutes, Mom," Michael replied, his fingers finding the familiar chords of The Dance, one of the Garth Brooks songs that had become his favorite during treatment. There was something about the lyrics that spoke to him, the idea that life's pain was worth experiencing for the moments of joy it contained. Jennifer smiled sadly, remembering how different life had been just a year ago. Michael had been captain of his high school's soccer team, popular, energetic, with dreams of playing college sports. Now, their days revolved around hospital appointments, blood counts, and the careful management of side effects that came with aggressive chemotherapy. The Thompson family had discovered Garth Brooks's music during one of Michael's longer hospital stays. A volunteer had been playing acoustic guitar in the children's ward, taking requests, and Michael had asked for something hopeful but real. The volunteer had played Unanswered Prayers, and something about the song's message had resonated deeply with the teenager facing his own uncertain future. From that day forward, Michael had immersed himself in Garth's catalog, learning every song he could manage on his guitar. The music provided him with a sense of control in a situation where he had very little, and his parents had noticed a marked improvement in his spirits on days when he spent time playing. "I've been thinking," Michael said as he joined his family for dinner, his younger sister Emma already halfway through her spaghetti. "About what?" his father, Robert Thompson, asked, setting down his fork to give his son his full attention. "About that Garth Brooks concert coming up. I know the tickets are expensive, and I know we've got a lot of medical bills, but—" Jennifer and Robert exchanged glances. They had been thinking the same thing, but hadn't wanted to bring up something that might not be financially feasible. "We've actually been looking into it," Jennifer admitted. "Your father and I think it might be exactly what our family needs right now. Something to look forward to. Something normal." Michael's eyes lit up for the first time in weeks. "Really? Even the good seats?" "Let's see what we can do," Robert said, though privately he was calculating the cost against their mounting medical expenses. Some things, he realized, were worth the financial sacrifice. As both families, the Mitchells' family of 1 and the Thompsons' family of 4, made their separate decisions to attend the concert, neither could have imagined how their paths would intersect, or how a simple act of kindness would create ripples that would touch more lives than they could possibly foresee. The next morning, Sarah called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Instead of spending the day caring for pediatric patients, she drove to her favorite coffee shop in the Gulch and sat by the window, watching Nashville's skyline and thinking about the life she was leaving behind. Her phone buzzed with a text from her supervisor. "Hope you're feeling better? The kids were asking about you today. Take care of yourself for once." Sarah smiled sadly. If only it were that simple. 3 weeks passed, with the slow inevitability of seasons changing. Sarah had continued working, though she found herself treasuring each interaction with her young patients more intensely, knowing her time with them was limited. She hadn't told anyone at the hospital about her diagnosis, a decision that felt both protective and isolating. The morning of the concert dawned crisp and clear, the kind of October day that made Nashville shine. Sarah stood in front of her bathroom mirror, applying makeup with extra care, trying to hide the subtle signs of illness that had begun to show. The slight yellowing of her skin, the dark circles under her eyes, the way her clothes had started to hang a little looser, despite her efforts to maintain her appetite. She had chosen her outfit weeks ago, a vintage denim jacket over a simple black dress, paired with her lucky cowboy boots, the ones she'd worn to every Garth Brooks concert since college. Looking at herself in the mirror, she whispered a small prayer to whoever might be listening. "Please, let this be everything I've dreamed it would be." Across town, the Thompson family was experiencing their own pre-concert preparations, though theirs carried a different energy. Michael had been feeling stronger lately, his most recent blood work showing improvement, and his oncologist had cleared him for the outing with explicit instructions about crowd management and infection prevention. "You look good, son," Robert said, as Michael emerged from his bedroom wearing a baseball cap to cover his bald head. The 16-year-old had grown self-conscious about his appearance, but today carried himself with more confidence than his parents had seen in months. "I feel good," Michael replied, and for the first time in a long while, he meant it. "I've been practicing Friends in Low Places all week. Maybe I'll get to sing along loud enough that Garth actually hears me." Emma, now 13 and fiercely protective of her older brother, grinned at him. "He'll definitely hear you. Your voice carries like nobody's business." The family piled into their SUV, the excitement palpable. Jennifer had packed a small cooler with snacks and Michael's medications, while Robert double-checked their tickets and parking passes. These small family outings had become precious since the diagnosis, each one a victory against the uncertainty that had invaded their lives. Nissan Stadium was already buzzing with energy when both families arrived, though they came from different parking areas and different economic circumstances. Sarah had splurged on premium parking, knowing she might not have the energy for a long walk. The Thompsons had opted for the more affordable lots, making the trek to the stadium part of their adventure. Inside the venue, the atmosphere was electric. 65,000 fans had gathered, representing every demographic imaginable, from teenagers like Michael to grandparents in their 80s, all united by their love for the man who had soundtracked significant portions of their lives. Sarah found her meet and greet section, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and the physical stress her body was now constantly managing. The other fans around her were chattering excitedly about their previous Garth encounters, sharing stories of other concerts and personal connections to his music. "First time meeting him?" asked the woman standing next to her, a friendly face in her 50s wearing a vintage concert t-shirt. "Yes," Sarah replied, her voice barely audible over the crowd noise. "I've been wanting to do this for 20 years. "Oh, honey, you're in for something special. He remembers everyone he meets, and he has this way of making you feel like you're the only person in the room. What's your story?" "Everyone's got one." Sarah hesitated. She hadn't planned on sharing her situation with strangers, but something about the woman's genuine warmth made her open up. "I'm a nurse," she began slowly. "Pediatric ward at Vanderbilt. I've been listening to Garth's music since I was a kid, and his songs have gotten me through some really difficult times at work. There's something about his voice that just makes everything feel manageable, you know?" The woman nodded knowingly. "I do know. Lost my husband 2 years ago, and The Dance was our wedding song. Garth's music has a way of meeting you exactly where you are." Before Sarah could respond, the meet and greet line began moving. Her palms grew sweaty as she realized that in just minutes, she would be face to face with the person whose voice had been a constant in her life for over 2 decades. Meanwhile, the Thompson family had found their seats in the lower bowl, closer to the stage than they had expected when Robert had managed to upgrade their tickets at the last minute. Michael was practically vibrating with excitement, his guitar-calloused fingers drumming imaginary chords on his knee. "Look at this view," he said to Emma, who was taking pictures with her phone to document the evening. "I can see everything from here." The opening acts had been solid, but the energy in the stadium shifted palpably when the lights dimmed for Garth's entrance. The roar of the crowd was deafening, and Michael found himself on his feet, shouting along with thousands of others as the opening notes of Rodeo filled the arena. For the next hour, both Sarah and Michael, separated by different sections of the stadium and unaware of each other's existence, experienced the transcendent power of live music. Garth Brooks, now in his 60s, but performing with the energy of someone half his age, commanded the stage with the presence that had made him one of the best-selling artists in music history. During The Dance, Michael found himself crying, not from sadness, but from a kind of overwhelming gratitude. The lyrics about not missing the dance, even knowing how it would end, felt like they had been written specifically for his situation. Around him, other fans were having their own emotional moments, creating a collective experience of catharsis and connection. Sarah, watching from her premium section, felt similarly moved. She had attended 17 Garth Brooks concerts, but this one felt different. Every song seemed to carry additional weight. Every lyric felt like a personal message. When he performed unanswered prayers, she thought about the prayers she had whispered in hospital rooms, both as a nurse comforting families and now as a patient facing her own mortality. The main concert concluded with Garth's signature energy. But for Sarah, the real moment she had been waiting for was about to begin. The meet and greet line formed, and she found herself third from the front, her heart pounding so hard she wondered if others could hear it. The first two fans had their brief moments with Garth. Photos, quick conversations, signed memorabilia. And then it was Sarah's turn. Garth Brooks stood barely 5 feet away, and Sarah felt as though the world had suddenly shifted into slow motion. He was smaller than she had expected, more human, but his presence filled the space around him in a way that made her understand why he commanded such devotion from millions of fans. "Well, hello there," he said in that familiar voice, his Oklahoma accent warm and genuine. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Sarah," she managed, her voice catching slightly. "Sarah Mitchell." "Sarah Mitchell," he repeated, as if committing it to memory. "It's wonderful to meet you, Sarah. Thank you for coming out tonight. Did you have a good time?" "The best time," she said, tears starting to form despite her efforts to stay composed. "Your music has been such an important part of my life. I'm a pediatric nurse, and I sing your songs to the kids sometimes, especially when they're scared or having a hard time." Garth's expression softened immediately. "A pediatric nurse? Well, that makes you a hero in my book. Those kids are lucky to have someone like you caring for them." Sarah laughed through her tears. "I don't feel like a hero most days, but your songs, they help me find the strength to keep going when things get really difficult." There was something in her voice, a quality that Garth had learned to recognize after decades of meeting fans. It wasn't just admiration or excitement, it was something deeper, more desperate. He had encountered it before, in people who were facing significant challenges, who needed music not just for entertainment, but for survival. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" he said, stepping slightly closer and lowering his voice so their conversation became more private, despite the cameras and handlers nearby. "Is everything okay? You seem like you're carrying something heavy." The question broke through every barrier Sarah had constructed. Perhaps it was his genuine concern. Or maybe it was the realization that this might be her only chance to be completely honest about what his music had meant to her. But she found herself telling the truth. "I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer a month ago," she said quietly. "Stage 4. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months, if I'm lucky." The words hung in the air between them. Garth's face went through a series of emotions: surprise, sadness, and something that looked like a deep personal pain. "Oh, honey," he said, and without hesitation, he wrapped her in a hug that felt like coming home. "I'm so sorry. How are you handling it?" "Some days better than others," Sarah admitted, allowing herself to lean into the embrace. "But your music has been my constant companion. When I'm scared, when I can't sleep, when I'm trying to process what's happening, I put on your songs and remember that life is still beautiful, even when it's hard." Garth held her for a long moment, and Sarah could feel that he was genuinely moved. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You know what I think?" he said. "I think you've been singing my songs to those kids all these years because you understand something that most people don't, that music can be medicine, that sometimes a song can say what we can't say ourselves." "Exactly," Sarah whispered. Garth looked around at his handlers, then back at Sarah. Something was happening in his mind, a decision forming that would surprise everyone present. "Sarah, I want to give you something," he said. "Something that's been with me for a very long time." He walked over to the corner of the meet and greet area where his personal items were stored, and returned with a guitar case. Inside was a vintage Gibson J45, its wood worn smooth by decades of playing, its surface bearing the scratches and dings that came from a lifetime of music making. "This guitar has been with me for almost 30 years, he said, lifting it carefully from the case. "I wrote some of my biggest hits on this instrument. It's traveled the world with me. Been in recording studios, on stages, in hotel rooms when I needed to work through something difficult." Sarah stared at the guitar, unable to process what she was hearing. "I can't accept this," she said immediately. "This is too important, too valuable." "Sarah," Garth said gently, "this guitar has given me everything. It's been my companion, my therapist, my tool for creating music that has touched people's lives. But guitars aren't meant to sit in cases. They're meant to be played, to create music, to bring comfort and joy." He held the instrument out to her. "I want you to have this. I want you to know that your life has mattered, that the work you've done caring for those children has made a difference. And I want you to have something that represents the connection between music and healing." Sarah's hands trembled as she accepted the guitar. It was heavier than she expected, and she could feel the weight of its history in her hands. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything," Garth replied. "Just promise me you'll play it. Even if you only know a few chords, play it. Let it bring you some peace." "I promise," Sarah said, clutching the guitar case to her chest. The photographer captured the moment. Sarah holding Garth's guitar, both of them with tears in their eyes, connected by something deeper than celebrity and fan. It was a moment of pure human connection, of one person recognizing another's pain and responding with extraordinary generosity. As Sarah was guided away to make room for the next fan, Garth watched her go with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. He had given away instruments before, but never one so personally significant. Something about Sarah's story had touched him in a way that demanded action. "Boss, that was beautiful," said his longtime manager, who had witnessed the entire exchange. "But that guitar will make more music with her than it would sitting in my collection," Garth finished. "That's what instruments are for." Sarah made her way out of the stadium in a daze, the guitar case heavy in her hands, her heart full of emotions she couldn't begin to process. She had come hoping for a photo and maybe a brief conversation. She was leaving with a piece of music history and a memory that would sustain her through whatever came next. Meanwhile, the Thompson family was making their own way out of the venue, Michael's face glowing with the aftermath of an extraordinary concert experience. "That was incredible," he said to his parents as they walked through the parking lot. "Did you see how he connected with everyone? It was like he was singing directly to each person in the audience." "He has a special gift," Jennifer agreed. "I could see how much it meant to you." Michael nodded, but he was already thinking beyond the concert itself. The experience had ignited something in him, a desire not just to listen to music, but to create it, to perhaps find a way to give back some of the comfort and joy that music had given him during his treatment. "Mom, Dad," he said as they reached their car, "I want to start writing songs, real songs, not just playing other people's music." "That sounds like a wonderful idea," Robert said. "Maybe we can look into some songwriting classes or find you a teacher." What none of them could have predicted was how their paths would cross with Sarah's in the days to come, creating a chain of events that would transform all of their lives and ultimately create something that would touch Garth Brooks more deeply than any fan letter or concert review ever could. Sarah's small apartment felt different when she returned from the concert, the Gibson J45 resting carefully in the corner like a visiting dignitary. She had spent the rest of the evening simply holding the instrument, running her fingers along its worn edges, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what had happened. The next morning brought the harsh reality of her situation crashing back. She woke with more pain than usual, a reminder that her body was fighting a battle it couldn't win. But as she moved through her morning routine, her eyes kept returning to the guitar, and she found herself thinking not about her own mortality, but about what she could do with this extraordinary gift. At work, Sarah tried to focus on her patients, but news of her encounter with Garth Brooks had somehow spread through the hospital's gossip network. By lunchtime, half the pediatric ward knew about the guitar, and several colleagues had stopped by to hear the story firsthand. "He just gave it to you?" asked Dr. Patricia Martinez, the head of pediatrics, her eyes wide with disbelief. "His personal guitar? I still can't quite believe it myself," Sarah admitted as they sat in the break room. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up, and it will have been a dream. What are you going to do with it?" It was a question Sarah had been asking herself since the moment Garth placed the instrument in her hands. She had played guitar in high school, but her skills were basic at best. The idea of keeping such a significant instrument when she had so little time left to use it felt almost wasteful. "I'm not sure yet," she said, "but I know Garth was right about one thing. Guitars are meant to be played, not displayed." That afternoon, Sarah found herself in the pediatric ward's family room, a comfortable space where patients and their families could relax away from the medical environment. She had brought the guitar with her, thinking perhaps she might find the courage to play a simple song for some of the children. What she found instead was Michael Thompson. He was sitting alone in the corner, his baseball cap pulled low, working on what appeared to be homework. Sarah recognized the telltale signs of a cancer patient: the careful way he moved, the slight pallor of his skin, the hospital bracelet barely visible under his sleeve. "Excuse me," she said gently, approaching his table. "I'm Sarah, one of the nurses here. Are you visiting someone?" Michael looked up, and Sarah could see he was older than most of her usual patients, probably in his teens. "I'm Michael Thompson," he said politely. "I'm actually a patient here, but not on this floor. I have leukemia, and I had an appointment today for blood work. My mom went to get coffee, and this seemed like a quiet place to wait." "It's a good spot for that," Sarah agreed, noting the mature way he spoke about his condition. "What are you working on?" "Song lyrics, actually," Michael admitted, a slight blush coloring his cheeks. "I know it probably sounds silly, but I've been trying to write music lately. It helps me process everything that's happening." Sarah's heart nearly stopped. The synchronicity was too remarkable to ignore. "That doesn't sound silly at all," she said, sitting down across from him. "Music can be incredibly therapeutic. What kind of songs are you writing?" "Mostly country," Michael replied, his enthusiasm growing as he sensed a genuine interest. "I went to see Garth Brooks last night, and it was amazing. There's something about his music that just speaks to real life, you know? The good parts and the difficult parts." "I was there too," Sarah said quietly. "And you're absolutely right about his music." They talked for a few minutes about the concert, comparing favorite moments and songs. Sarah could see that music wasn't just a hobby for Michael. It was a lifeline, much as it had been for her. "Can I ask you something that might sound strange?" Sarah said finally. Michael nodded. "How would you feel about playing a very special guitar?" She opened the case beside her chair, revealing the Gibson J45. Michael's eyes went wide. "Is that Garth Brooks's personal guitar?" Sarah confirmed. "He gave it to me last night." Michael stared at the instrument as if it were a sacred relic. "He gave it to you? Why?" Sarah hesitated, then decided on honesty. "Because I'm dying, and he thought music might bring me some comfort in my remaining time." The words hung in the air. Michael's face went through a series of emotions: surprise, sadness, and then something that looked like understanding. "Cancer?" he asked quietly. "Pancreatic." Stage 4. Michael nodded slowly. That's rough. Mine's treatable, but I know how scary it is to have your whole world change overnight. Exactly, Sarah said. But here's the thing, Michael. I can barely play 3 chords, and I have maybe 6 months left. This guitar deserves better than sitting in my apartment. And you? You have real talent. You could create something beautiful with it. I couldn't possibly. Yes, you could. Sarah interrupted gently. Garth told me that guitars are meant to be played, not displayed. He gave it to me because he believed in the power of music to heal, but I think maybe he gave it to me so I could pass it on to someone who could really use it. Michael stared at the guitar, then back at Sarah. Are you sure? This has to be worth a fortune, and it's obviously incredibly meaningful. It's meaningful because of the music it can create, Sarah said, and I have a feeling you're going to create something special. Before Michael could protest further, his mother Jennifer appeared in the doorway. There you are, she said, then noticed the guitar and the intensity of the conversation. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Sarah stood and introduced herself, explaining her role at the hospital and briefly recounting the story of the guitar. Jennifer listened with growing amazement. Mrs. Thompson, Sarah concluded, your son has a real gift. He's been writing songs to help process his treatment, and I believe this instrument could help him create something truly meaningful. Jennifer looked between Sarah and Michael, seeing something in both of their faces that spoke to a deeper connection than a chance meeting. Michael, she said gently, what do you think? I think, Michael said slowly, that this is the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me. But are you absolutely sure, Sarah? This guitar has so much history. I'm sure, Sarah said, but I have one condition. Anything. I want you to promise me that you'll use it to create music that matters, music that helps people the way Garth's music has helped both of us. Can you do that? Michael nodded solemnly. I promise. The transfer of the guitar felt ceremonial, significant beyond the simple passing of an object from one person to another. Sarah carefully placed the instrument in Michael's hands, and she could see immediately that it belonged with him. His fingers naturally found comfortable positions on the frets, and even without strumming, she could tell he had the instincts of a real musician. There's one more thing, Sarah said. I'd love to hear what you create with it. Would you mind if I kept in touch? Maybe you could play something for me sometime? I'd love that, Michael said. Actually, I've been working on a song about resilience, about finding hope in difficult times. Maybe I could finish it and play it for you. I'd like that very much. As Sarah prepared to leave, Jennifer stopped her. Thank you, she said simply. I don't know if you realize what you've just done for my son. Music has been his salvation during treatment, and this is going to mean everything to him. He's going to do something special with it, Sarah replied. I can already tell. That evening, Michael sat in his bedroom with Garth Brooks's guitar, feeling the weight of responsibility and possibility in his hands. The instrument seemed to hum with potential, and for the first time since his diagnosis, he felt like he had a purpose beyond simply surviving. He began to play, his fingers finding chords that felt both familiar and new on this historic instrument. As the melody emerged, words began to form in his mind. Words about courage, about unexpected gifts, about the way strangers could become angels without even realizing it. What Michael didn't know was that this song would soon find its way to Garth Brooks himself, carrying with it a story that would challenge everything the country superstar thought he knew about the impact of his music and the ripple effects of a single act of kindness. 2 weeks had passed since Sarah had given Garth's guitar to Michael, and she could feel her strength diminishing with each day. The cancer was progressing faster than the doctors had initially predicted, but rather than despair, Sarah found herself filled with a strange sense of peace. She had continued working as much as her body allowed, spending her final weeks doing what she loved most, caring for children who needed her. Michael, meanwhile, had been transformed by the guitar. He practiced every day, his skills improving rapidly as he channeled his emotions into music. The song he had mentioned to Sarah, the one about resilience and hope, had evolved into something far more complex and beautiful than he had initially imagined. "He hasn't put that guitar down since you gave it to him," Jennifer told Sarah during one of their phone calls. They had stayed in touch, with Jennifer providing updates on Michael's progress both medically and musically. "How's he doing with treatment?" Sarah asked, though her voice was noticeably weaker than it had been just days earlier. "Better, actually. His latest scans showed significant improvement. The doctors are cautiously optimistic about his long-term prognosis." "But Sarah, are you okay? You sound tired." Sarah was lying in her hospital bed at Vanderbilt, having been admitted the previous day when her pain had become unmanageable. She hadn't told Jennifer about the hospitalization, not wanting to worry her or create any obligation. "I'm okay," she said, which was true in the ways that mattered most. "Tell me about the song." "Oh, Sarah, you should hear it. It's called Angel in Disguise, and it's about you, about how you gave him this incredible gift, but more than that, how you believed in him when he needed it most. He's been working with one of the music teachers at school to refine it, and they think it's really something special." Sarah felt tears forming. "I'd love to hear it." "Actually," Jennifer said carefully, "he's been hoping to perform it for you. Would that be okay? He could come to your apartment, or wherever would be convenient." Sarah looked around the sterile hospital room, knowing that she wouldn't be returning to her apartment. The doctors had been clear that her condition was deteriorating rapidly, and comfort care was now the priority. "Jennifer," she said quietly, "I need to tell you something." The conversation that followed was difficult but necessary. Sarah explained her current situation, her location, and her prognosis. Jennifer cried, offered to help in any way possible, and promised to bring Michael to the hospital so he could play the song for her. "Sarah," Jennifer said through her tears, "you've given our family so much more than a guitar. You've given Michael a sense of purpose, a way to channel everything he's been feeling. We love you, and we want to be here for you." The next afternoon, Michael arrived at the hospital with his parents, Garth's guitar in its case, and a nervousness that was both stage fright and something deeper. The weight of performing something deeply personal for someone who had become incredibly important to him. Sarah was in the family room when they arrived, having requested to be moved from her bed for the occasion. She looked frailer than she had 2 weeks earlier, but her eyes still held the warmth and intelligence that had drawn Michael to her immediately. "There's my favorite songwriter," she said with a smile that lit up her face despite her obvious exhaustion. Michael hugged her gently, struck by how small she felt in his arms. "Are you ready to hear what you inspired?" he asked. "I've been looking forward to this all week." Michael opened the guitar case with reverent care, lifting out the Gibson J45. The instrument still amazed him every time he held it. The history it contained, the music it had created, the generosity it represented. "Before I play," he said, "I want you to know that this song isn't just about the guitar, or even just about you. It's about how sometimes the most important moments in our lives come from unexpected places, and how one person's kindness can change everything." He positioned the guitar and began to play. The melody was haunting and beautiful, clearly influenced by Garth's style, but uniquely Michael's own. When he began to sing, his voice carried a maturity that belied his 16 years. "I was sitting in that hospital chair, fighting battles that weren't fair, when an angel walked my way, changed my life in just one day. She had secrets of her own. pain she carried all alone. But she saw something in me, set my music spirit free. Angel in disguise, with tears in her eyes, gave me more than gold could buy, taught me how to fly when I thought I'd say goodbye. Angel in disguise. Sarah was crying before he finished the first verse. The lyrics captured not just their encounter, but something deeper about the nature of human connection, about how people facing their own struggles often become the source of strength for others. Michael continued, his voice growing stronger with each verse. She said guitars are meant to sing, not to hide like precious things. Make some music that will heal, show the world that love is real. Now I play with borrowed time. Every note and every rhyme carries forward what she gave. Love that reaches past the grave. Angel in disguise, with tears in her eyes, gave me more than gold could buy, taught me how to fly when I thought I'd say goodbye. Angel in disguise. As the song concluded, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even some of the hospital staff who had gathered in the doorway were visibly moved. The combination of Michael's heartfelt performance, the story behind it, and the knowledge of Sarah's condition created an atmosphere of profound emotional intensity. "Michael," Sarah whispered when he finished, "that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. You've taken something painful and turned it into something that will help others. That's exactly what music is supposed to do." "I couldn't have written it without you," Michael replied. "You taught me that music isn't just about entertainment. It's about connection, about finding hope in impossible places." Dr. Martinez, who had been watching from the doorway, stepped forward. "That was extraordinary," she said. "Michael, would you mind if we recorded that? I think there are people who need to hear this story." Michael looked at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. "If Sarah's okay with it, I'd be honored." What followed was an impromptu recording session using the hospital's basic video equipment. Michael performed the song again, this time directly to the camera, with Sarah visible in the background, her face glowing with pride and love for this young man who had become like family to her. But the most powerful moment came after the song, when Michael spoke directly to the camera. This guitar belonged to Garth Brooks for 30 years. He gave it to Sarah Mitchell, a nurse here at Vanderbilt who has spent her career taking care of children, including kids like me who are fighting cancer. Sarah is dying, but instead of keeping this incredible gift for herself, she gave it to me because she believed I could create something meaningful with it. Sarah taught me that the most important thing about music isn't the instrument you play, it's the heart you put into it. She's shown me that even when you're facing the worst possible circumstances, you can still choose to be generous, to lift others up, to create something beautiful. This song is for Sarah, but it's also for everyone who has ever been someone else's angel without realizing it, for everyone who has given a gift that changed a life, for everyone who believes that music can heal. The video was originally intended just for the hospital's internal use, perhaps to share with other patients and families. But Dr. Martinez, recognizing its broader significance, decided to share it with a few colleagues. From there, it found its way to social media, where it began to spread organically. Within days, the video had been viewed thousands of times. The story of Garth's guitar, Sarah's generosity, and Michael's transformation resonated with people around the world who were dealing with their own struggles and looking for examples of human kindness. Sarah passed away peacefully 5 days after the recording, surrounded by her colleagues from the hospital and the Thompson family, who had become her chosen family in her final weeks. Her last request was that Michael continue to play the guitar, to write songs that mattered, and to remember that music was a gift meant to be shared. The funeral was small but meaningful, attended by dozens of her former patients and their families, colleagues from the hospital, and the Thompsons. Michael played Angel in Disguise at the service, and there wasn't a person present who wasn't moved by the beauty of the song and the love it represented. But the story didn't end there. A week after Sarah's funeral, the video of Michael's performance had reached over 1 million views. News outlets had picked up the story, and suddenly, the tale of Garth Brooks's guitar and the chain of generosity it had inspired was being told around the world. It was inevitable that the video would eventually find its way to Garth Brooks himself. He was on his tour bus, traveling between cities, when his manager showed him the video on an iPad. Garth watched in silence, his expression changing from curiosity to amazement to something much deeper as he realized what he was seeing. "That's my guitar," he said quietly when the video ended. "More than that," his manager replied, "that's what happened to your guitar." Garth watched the video again, this time focusing on different details. The skill with which Michael played, the genuine emotion in his voice, the way the instrument seemed to come alive in his hands. But most importantly, he listened to the story Michael told about Sarah, about her generosity, about the way she had chosen to give rather than keep, even in her final weeks. When the video ended the second time, Garth was crying. "I gave that guitar to a dying woman thinking I was helping her," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I had no idea she would do something like this with it. I had no idea that one moment of kindness could create such a beautiful chain reaction." He called his assistant immediately. "I need you to find Michael Thompson in Nashville. I need to meet this young man." The call came to the Thompson household 3 days later. Jennifer answered, thinking it was another reporter or someone who had seen the viral video. "Mrs. Thompson? This is going to sound crazy, but this is Garth Brooks. I'd like to speak with Michael, if that's possible." Jennifer nearly dropped the phone. "I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?" "This is Garth Brooks. I saw the video of your son playing my guitar and singing that beautiful song about Sarah. I'd like to meet him, if you'll allow it." The conversation that followed was surreal. Garth explained how moved he had been by the video, how it had shown him something about his own music and its impact that he had never fully understood. He wanted to meet Michael, not as a celebrity granting a wish to a fan, but as one musician recognizing another. "That guitar has been with me for 30 years, Garth told Michael when they spoke directly. "I've written countless songs on it, recorded albums, performed for millions of people, but I have never ever heard it sound more beautiful than it did in your video. You've honored that instrument and Sarah's memory in the most incredible way." "Mr. Brooks," Michael said, still hardly believing he was speaking with his idol, "I just want you to know that giving that guitar to Sarah was the most generous thing I've ever witnessed. It created this whole chain of events that has changed my life, and, apparently, a lot of other people's lives too. Michael, I want to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. How would you feel about performing that song with me at my next Nashville show? I think Sarah's story deserves to be heard by as many people as possible." Michael was speechless for a long moment. "I would be honored," he finally managed. "But are you sure? I'm just a kid with cancer who writes songs in his bedroom." "No," Garth said firmly. "You're a songwriter who understands something that took me decades to learn, that the power of music isn't in the performance, it's in the connection. You're exactly who I want to share that stage with." 2 weeks later, at a sold-out show at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Garth Brooks brought a 16-year-old cancer patient on stage to perform a song about kindness, loss, and the transformative power of generosity. The audience of 20,000 people listened in complete silence as Michael, playing Garth's old guitar, told Sarah's story and performed Angel in Disguise. When the song ended, The standing ovation lasted for nearly 10 minutes. But, more importantly, the video of that performance would be viewed by millions more people around the world, spreading Sarah's story and her message about the importance of kindness and generosity. Garth, standing beside Michael as the crowd cheered, felt something he had never experienced in his long career. It wasn't the satisfaction of a successful performance, or the thrill of audience approval. It was the profound realization that his simple act of giving away a guitar had created something far more beautiful and meaningful than any song he had ever written. Later, in his dressing room after the show, Garth pulled Michael aside. "That guitar belongs to you now," he said. "Officially. I'm having the papers drawn up. Sarah was right. It's found its home." "I can't accept that," Michael protested. "It's too valuable, too important to your career." "Michael," Garth said, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder, "that guitar taught me something tonight that I've been missing my entire career. Music isn't about what we keep, it's about what we give away. Sarah understood that. You understand that. Now I understand it too." As Michael left the arena that night, the guitar case in his hand, he thought about Sarah and the impossible chain of events that had brought him to this moment. She had been gone for a month, but her influence continued to ripple outward, touching lives in ways she never could have imagined. The video of his performance with Garth would eventually reach over 50 million views. Countless people would share their own stories of unexpected kindness, of strangers who had become angels, of small acts that had changed everything. But more than that, the story had changed how people thought about generosity and legacy. Sarah Mitchell, a pediatric nurse from Nashville who had never sought fame or recognition, had taught the world that the most powerful gifts are the ones we give away, and that sometimes the greatest music comes not from what we keep, but from what we choose to share. Michael continued to write songs, eventually launching a music career built on the foundation of authentic storytelling and emotional honesty that Sarah had helped him discover. Every song he wrote, every performance he gave, carried forward her message about the transformative power of kindness. And somewhere in the cosmos of human connection, Sarah's spirit lived on, not in sadness or loss, but in the beautiful music that continued to flow from an old guitar and the young man who had learned to play it with both skill and heart, creating melodies that would heal and inspire for generations to come. The story of Garth Brooks's guitar had become Sarah's story, and Sarah's story had become a reminder to everyone who heard it that we all have the power to be someone else's angel in disguise. If only we choose to give rather than keep, to lift rather than diminish, to create beauty even in the midst of our own struggles. And that, perhaps, was the most beautiful music of all.